Well, here we go. From the Oval Office to the bushes in the Rose Garden, our first guest has seen it all. He survived one of the worst jobs ever and is free at last to speak about it. From our nation's capital, please say hello to former White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer. Good to have you here. Thank you for coming.
I knew I was going to get that kind of applause. I would have left earlier.
Is it weird? Is it weird for you to get applause when you walk out onto a stage? Because usually you're looking at all these grim-faced reporters.
Yeah, especially in California. But
have you been getting? Have you been harassed since?
No. It's been unbelievably pleasant since for the last month. People have been very, very supportive, and that's, I think, very helpful to know. People have come up and said, "Thank you for your service. I didn't vote for the president. I'm not a Republican, but I appreciate you serving the country." And I think that gets back to what this should always be about: is that we have elections, they get decided, and then people of both parties should be able to serve this country.
Are you distancing yourself from the president right now?
Absolutely not. No, I'm not.
Well, this is obviously a hard job, and I mean, and it turned out to be kind of funny in a lot of ways. Was it funny
for you? I'm not so sure I see it that way, but I appreciate the jokes.
Let's go back to the beginning. How did you get the job of press secretary in the first place?
So I had been at the Republican National Committee for about 6 years. Our job is to sync up with the nominee. After the Indiana primary, Trump became the apparent nominee, went into the convention. They ran a rather unconventional campaign, and so there was a lot of need for communications staff. And I was asked to go up and start helping out on a more full-time basis, help up and down the ticket. So I started basically commuting to New York the last week of August and spent the last 3.5 months getting to know the president, traveling with him, doing the events, and then we won.
And then he said, "You're the guy."
And then, I literally got a phone call from the president, and he said, let's do this. I want you to do the job, and I thanked him profusely, and off we went.
And so right off the bat, your first ever press conference, you get in there, and it's the day after the inauguration, right?
Yes.
And you are charged with the job of going in front of the press and saying that the inauguration crowd was the biggest crowd, I think, ever, biggest audience ever.
Yes, I'm aware of it.
Yeah. And
I appreciate the reminder of how it went down.
So, did the president himself, now, if it was up to you, would this even have been a topic?
If it was up to me, I would have probably worn a different suit. I thought I was going in on a Saturday morning to set my office up, get the computer, make sure the emails went out, and
somebody told you need to go out there and say
the president wanted to make sure that the record got set straight. And
why is he so concerned with size? Have you ever seen the president naked?
I have not.
You have not?
No.
Okay.
But look, I said it at the time, and I believe it, that I think, in all seriousness, that again, whether or not you voted for him or not, the president won the election. He was faced a lot of headwinds, and I think there was a faction of people out there that didn't want to give him the credit that he rightly deserved, and I think he takes a lot of that sometimes personally. Some of us who worked very hard to get him elected felt as though a lot of folks in the media in particular constantly sought to undermine the validity of that election. And so you have to understand it sometimes from that perspective.
But the validity of the election, compared to looking at photos of the crowd at an inauguration, I mean, they're like, one's this and one is this. Did you try to talk him out of that line of defense?
I think there was a lot of us that wanted to be focused on his agenda, what he spoke about in his inaugural address. So, look, but he's president. He made a decision.
So you have to go along, even though even if you know, and I'm going to ask you to say whether it was or not, but even if you know the crowd wasn't bigger, you have to go, as press secretary, you have to say that it was.
Look, your job as press secretary is to represent the president's voice and to make sure that you are articulating what he believes his vision is on policy, on issues and on other areas that he wants to articulate. Whether or not you agree or not isn't your job. Your job is to give him advice, and which is what we would do on a variety of issues all the time. He would always listen to that advice, but ultimately he's the president. He would say, I agree with you sometimes, or that's a good point, incorporate it. Or sometimes he would say, depending on the issue, look, I know what I believe, and this is what I think the right thing to do is.
And then you have to march out there and go, yeah, he had a bigger crowd, everybody.
Look, as I said, he's the president.
Yeah.
He decides.
I understand.
And that's what you sign up to do.
So a lot of these guys, these members of the press, were your friends, right?
I think we're, yeah.
Yeah, were? Okay. So this is Jonathan Karl from ABC News, who was a friend of yours?
I've known Jonathan for a long time.
Okay, all right. So here's how you guys kind of got it going.
Is it your intention to always tell the truth from that podium, and will you pledge never to knowingly say something that is not factual?
It is. It's an honor to do this, and yes, I believe that we have to be honest with the American people. I think sometimes we can disagree with the facts.
Can we, though, disagree with the facts?
Well, I think the point is that you can look at an argument or a set of facts and come out with one opinion. Someone else can say, while the facts are the same here, I come out with a different conclusion.
I see.
And so, I mean, that's what makes our country great, is that, there's ways that you can look at economic models and say, we believe that growth rates will be higher or lower, and that's...
Like, if I were to say to you, I'm sitting on a horse right now.
Then you're
You would
not.
say, yeah, right, exactly. That's the... Yeah, no, so I want to go ask about Jonathan there. When he's asking you this question, are you like, you son of a bitch, I've known you for 20 years?
There were a couple other words. But that's the TV version. We're on cable. There's times when you're thinking to yourself, that's if you want to ask about policy or a particular instance, but to get up there and question, on day one, my integrity, I think, was not something that I anticipated.
Yeah, well, I'm sure. Although when you brought that crowd size thing out, you opened this terrible Pandora's box. Do you think that's what got you off to like a kind of a bad start with the press corps?
I don't think it was probably the best start. No.
Did the president watch all of your press conferences?
I don't think, not every one of them.
Not every one of them. But would he be waiting for you afterwards?
There were some days when, he would at some point either see clips or watch it, depending on the day and what meetings were happening and what time the briefing was. And so a lot of times he would provide feedback based on, again, my job is to articulate his position.
Yeah, right.
And so he would say, hey, I thought that was really good how you articulated this. I think I would have phrased this differently. And
really?
In the future,
he was that constructive in the way he put things?
Sometimes depends on the issue. But it depended on the issue. And again, it's my job to speak on his behalf. So if you're not speaking in the way that he wants, obviously he wanted to make sure that he corrected that.
Donald Trump comes out and undermines what they're saying. For example, Sean Spicer, when he said, this is not a Muslim ban, this is not a travel ban. And then the president tweets he wants his travel ban, and he doesn't even like the watered-down one with Jeff Sessions.
Sean Spicer, you didn't know we had cameras in your office. So when the president would tweet, did you have an alert on your phone?
Yes.
Did he ever run a tweet by you before tweeting it?
I don't believe... maybe once or twice.
Did you ask him to?
To run him by?
Yeah. No, you didn't. Did it ever, like wake you up in the middle of the night? Or anything like that?
I think there were times when you might have wanted to go to bed and said, okay, this is going to be a little longer night. Or you would get up and, the first thing. But that was one of the president's most effective tools on the campaign trail, and he continues to utilize it. So you were constantly kept on your toes. And I will tell you that there is no one that's working harder than him when it comes to the hours of the day. He's up late, he's up early, and that, as a staffer, you usually are trying to get ahead of your boss. Did
you ever try just accidentally dropping his phone in the toilet?
I did not.
You did not. See, you should have called me. I could have helped you with this job.
You've been a lot of help.
I know. I've been. This idea of fake news.
Yeah.
Again, we talked about your relationship. You have a long-standing relationship with members of the press. Do you agree that the vast majority of, not the vast majority, the majority of journalists are decent people who are looking to get the truth and to write the truth?
I think probably the majority.
Yeah.
There are a lot that have now, I always like to say that they'd rather be first than right. And I think that's unfortunate because it gives a bad name to those who actually do take the time to do it right.
There is a lot of that. People want to just get
right,
people to click.
And it's also, there's a line between, and this is where I think a lot of journalists have crossed the line, which is they go on Twitter or on other social media and start to perpetuate myths or make back and forth and say, well, that's not a story,
Wait
that's
a minute.
tweet.
The journalists go on Twitter and perpetuate myths? How about the president?
Well, but yeah, look, and I think there's a lot of times where what I found frustrating was that there were a lot of times when they were literally creating a story out of whole cloth that didn't exist. And I think that that's difficult because if you're a viewer or a reader and you see something, you're trusting these individuals to give you what is the best, the whole truth,
Sure, yeah.
as opposed to a one-sided way that's going to promote, a view or a click.
But the president, it seems that what he calls fake news is really anything that criticizes him, and then he'll give validity to wacky news sources sometimes because they're complimentary. And do you think that is a dangerous thing to delegitimize the press for America?
Look, I think it's a two-way street. And when these guys in the press corps go after the president in ways that are unbecoming, and again, it's sort of like what your mom said, two wrongs don't make a right. And so I think sometimes when the press corps attacks the president, undermines him, or calls into question his credibility from the outset, I think it creates a very poor relationship overall. And I think that there is some area that could deserve a reset. And hopefully, I think Sarah's done a phenomenal job of really trying to take the tone down and get back.
So when you say there were two wrongs, you mean Donald Trump, the
Well,
president,
there were times,
was wrong?
but no, I didn't say that. But what what I'm saying
Sean, you
is,
don't work there anymore.
I
You don't
know.
have to worry about him. We can protect you here.
Yeah.
I got the best security guy in the world. I mean, look at this.
No, I believe that, look, that a free press is paramount to a democracy, and it's what makes our country great, that we do have the ability, like so many places on earth don't have that ability to speak freely, to have a free press. But it is an awesome responsibility for those members of the press corps to have, and they need to understand that when they cross the line, or when a member of the press corps crosses the line, that they have a responsibility to help hold that in. And I've never seen
sure.
a group of individuals who protect themselves like the press corps does, especially the White House press corps. They've never once, during my tenure, and at least in my recollection, ever called out someone who has crossed the line on a story. And I think it undermines...
Is that true?
I rarely have seen any, they always have an excuse for why that story, well, we were going to correct it and we checked with the sources and now, and there's never an admission of guilt. Once in a while, you'll see a little correction that says, we erred in it, putting the period here or there. But I do believe that the healthier press corps that we have, the better democracy that we have.
Lumping everyone together, though, as fake news just seems terrible to me. I mean, in
Sure,
a way,
but
you're a Catholic, and I'm a Catholic as well. I'm offended when people lump all priests together as child abusers. I find that to be unfair to those who aren't.
I agree. But
feel
as someone who's a conservative and a Republican, I spent 25 years in Washington, D.C. being told conservatives want this, Republicans are against this. So I agree. But it's the press corps that also lumps all of us into the same bucket as well and says conservatives don't care about this, the Republicans are racist. If those statements are not right, then it's not right. So again, it's that whole idea of two wrongs don't make a right. The press corps wants to attack Republicans, attack conservatives, undermine our attempt to have a constructive dialogue. And I think it's a two-way street. So if we don't want to lump every journalist into the same thing, then don't lump every Republican and every conservative into the same box.
Okay. I don't think everyone is. I mean, you've got Fox News is certainly not doing that, and you consider them to be part of the press. I mean, it really is. I mean, it seems almost like a childish way to interact with each other as two different
and that's why I'm
groups.
saying I think that there's a time that we can start taking down the temperature and getting back to a more constructive and civil dialogue.
You mean when Mike Pence takes over?
I I think we could all use a dose of that.
All right.
And especially, one of the things that makes us, again, such a great country is that we have this ability to have the discourse that we have. But I think that what we want to do is to continue to be that place in the world that people look to and admire the values and the principles that we have.
Now, I'd like to begin today by apologizing on behalf of you to me for how you have treated me these last 2 weeks. And that apology is not accepted. Because I'm not here to be your buddy. I'm here to swallow gum, and I'm here to take names.
That's Melissa McCarthy. I want you laughing very hard.
Be like a lot of money in therapy.
You thought that was funny, right?
That was kind of funny.
You like that? Did the president? He didn't think that was funny.
I don't think he found as much humor as
Was he
others.
particularly annoyed by the fact that a woman was playing you?
I really didn't ask a ton of questions.
Yeah.
So that may have been a contributing
What a
factor.
no-win situation that is. Like, they're making fun of me, and you're mad at me for
Yeah.
it.
And
This
she
is
wins an
crazy.
Emmy.
And then she won an Emmy. This is we posted this on Twitter. There's us together. What year was this?
That was 2007.
I think I was filling in for Regis with Kelly
Yes.
outside, and it was Fleet Week, and there you are in your uniform. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't know about
And
it until you sent it to me. And I don't know what I'm looking at there, but I apologize for that. Do you, this Anthony Scaramucci character, so we know you didn't get along with the guy, obviously.
Actually, that's not true.
Oh.
I hate to. So I had known Anthony from the campaign. He had done a lot of surrogate work for us, appearing on different television networks, supporting the president and the campaign. So we had known each other through the campaign.
But when he was hired, that's when you said,
Right,
that's
but
it.
again, it wasn't personal. It wasn't that I had anything against Anthony. I didn't feel Anthony's been very successful in business. He's made a ton of money, but I just didn't feel as though he had the qualifications or the background to work in the communications office.
I see.
And my view is that if I'm going to have to partner with somebody that I don't believe had the skill set to execute the job, then it was incumbent upon me to either step aside or make my voice known. I did. I told the president I thought it was if he wanted a clean slate, that he wanted a change, that I respected that, but it was in his best interest to have me step aside completely and let Anthony move forward.
When that New Yorker article came out where he said all those crazy things and apparently didn't seem to realize he was on the record, where were you when you read that?
I don't. I think I was in my office.
Did somebody give you a heads up? You gotta look at this?
I think I had started to read some stuff on Twitter that there was a story coming out,
And were you cackling like a maniac when you read that thing?
look, I don't like to, as you meant, I don't think it's right to relish in somebody else's problems. And so I just as a person, I don't think that's right. But again, I think it proved my point, and that to do this job is one in which you have to have the proper background and
I
training.
think you were. I imagine you high-fiving everyone there. This is a shot from your farewell party.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I've never seen anyone happier than you are in this photograph. I mean, you are literally the happiest man on earth.
The president said to me right before I left, he said, "My gosh, you look 10 years younger."
Do you think Donald Trump wants to be president?
Absolutely.
You do, really?
Yeah. Listen, I think you can disagree, but I will tell you, I got to know him fairly well. He's a good man that really cares about this country. And so you may not always agree with his policies, but I know his heart's in the right place. He truly cares about this country. He wants to give back.
You are doing public speaking now.
I am.
And are you enjoying doing that?
It's yes.
Is there a Q&A portion, or are you done with that?
Yeah, there's been a Q&A.
There has been a Q&A.
It's a little nicer.
It's a nicer Q&A, yeah. And will you write a tell-all book with
No.
every detail? You will not.
No.
Why?
Because I don't think that's the right thing to do. I think if someone entrusts you to bring you into the inner circle of something, that it would be an act of betrayal. Now, I think I've learned a lot from my experience there. It was an amazing honor to serve in this position. And I would like to maybe share some of the experiences with folks, share some of the lessons learned, some of the insight.
You will write a tell some book?
I will write a tell book. There might be some pictures, but I wouldn't. I don't think it would be the right thing to do. But I think there's something there. There's a lot of really interesting pieces of history that I had the unbelievable honor and privilege to be part of, and I'd love to maybe share that with the American people.
You have Trump by the balls right now. I mean, if you write that book, if you hold on to writing that book, you could literally run this country from some kind of shadow organization at your house.
Well, I appreciate that.
Well, I thank you for being here. I really do appreciate it. It's great to meet you and get to know you a little bit. Sean Spicer, everybody. Hi, I'm Jimmy Kimmel. If you enjoyed the video, hit subscribe. And if you don't click subscribe, this invisible hamster will die.